Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, thank you for coming this morning. We sure appreciate our membership being well represented today. So this is an important meeting on a lot of different levels. Typically, we've used this time in the past for some various roundtables, or we've used it for question and answer with the WIAA staff. Sometimes a general session, perhaps another speaker. But we have an opportunity to go in a little different direction today, and I think it's a really good one for us. I think it's productive, and I think it's going to open our eyes to a lot of things and help direct our paths as we continue to partner as an organization with the WIAA. So I think here's where we're at. So partnering with the WIAA is certainly more important now than it ever has been. While we have enjoyed the growth and evolution of high school sports, we realize that there's still a lot of work to do. We realize that there are challenges, and of course there's new opportunities. However, sometimes you don't know exactly what these new challenges and new opportunities are. We realize that the decisions we make as an organization, along with the WIAA, has legal implications across the state. Where do we put sports seasons? How do we match high schools together? Which students do we allow to participate in our programs, and which do we prevent from doing so? So there's implications all across the state, and not just in the state, but across the nation. One of the things that we want to continue to do as an organization is be forward-thinking. We certainly want to be compassionate and respectful of one another, but we really need to try to understand what the new challenges are. So I appreciate what our state association, under the leadership of Dave Anderson, has done. Started asking questions in some different ways and looking to see how we can be even more professional in how we gather data. And so this is how we've gotten involved with school perceptions. So today I have Sue Peterson and Bill Foster from School Perceptions Survey, and they're going to be sharing data with you. And my understanding is the information that they're sharing with you, this is going to be the first time this group hears it, but also even our staff at the WIAA offices have not had an opportunity to delve into these to this data at all. So they're going to be hearing some of this for the first time. So I think our goal today is to be active listeners, take some notes, see what questions that we're processing and what's percolating. And we do know this, that our goal is to share information today, and I'm looking forward to getting this data. But we know that we're not going to be able to react to this information today. It's going to take some time for us to sift through it and to see what's the best way to take the next step. So without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Bill Foster and Sue Peterson. Welcome, and thank you.
Yeah, we can't see the screen. That's all right.
All right, you click and I'll start. So welcome. Again, I'm Bill Foster and with Sue Peterson. We're both with School Perceptions. So we're going to go through this survey data today. Just want to give you a little background on our company. So our mission, we were actually founded in 2002, and our mission is to help educational leaders gather, organize, and use data to make strategic decisions. So typically that takes the form of staff surveys or parent surveys or student surveys. We've also conducted over 400 community surveys for the sake of strategic planning and referendum preparation. So we do a lot of data gathering work. We like to consider ourselves as neutral and unbiased as possible. So when the WIAA called us and said, would you like to do a statewide survey, we said we'd love to. This is a little bit different topic for us, but we did our best to put together an objective survey. So I guess just before I start, I like to use an analogy. So if we're all lost in the woods, and the first thing you want to do is have somebody pull up a map and say, here's the map. And in order to get out of the woods, the first thing you have to do is say, here's where we are. So you point at the map and you say, this is where we are right now. So that's kind of where we are in this process. They're saying, here's where we are as a group, as a state. We haven't exactly figured out how to get out of the woods yet. So we're defining the problem, and then we're going to go to stage 2, which will be solving the problem, which will be really back to the Board of Control in the summer to begin to discuss. So we're defining the problem right now. So to do that, we sent out a survey. We decided to survey all public and private schools throughout the state, and we asked administrators or presidents in the case of private schools, high school principals, and athletic directors, you all, to respond to the survey. In total, we had 1,668 responses. And for those who didn't respond, we actually contacted them. So you didn't take the survey, not everybody, but we wanted to reach out. And we found that kind of the general message was that the people who didn't respond were typically superintendents. In fact, my superintendent from my school district said, I didn't take it. I felt comfortable having my athletic director respond. So we didn't have 100%, we had 76% response rate. But when you go look at the data, we had 96% of all schools in the state participate with at least one person presenting or responding to the data. So we felt really good that we had good representation statewide. From a statistical standpoint, our margin of error was plus or minus 3%. So who took the survey? I'll turn it over to Sue.
All right, let's see if they can hear me.
So when we look at our respondent information, we look at all of those who responded. 44% were athletic directors, so most of you. 32% were building principals, and 29% were district administrators or presidents of systems. Then we asked if you were registered as the school's voting delegate at the WIAA's last annual meeting. 40% of respondents said yes, 50% said no, 10% didn't know. So we laugh at that, we did too.
Didn't know probably means no. But.
So then we jumped into the competitive equity question. In general, do you believe there is a competitive equity problem in the WIAA? So this was looking at all respondents across those three different demographic groups. And as you can see, 68% of respondents said yes, 21% said no, and 11% responded don't know. Then we said, in general, do you believe there...
The same question broken out
Yeah,
by
broken out by the different demographics. So again, you can see here that athletic directors had 66% said yes, your principals 68%, and your district administrators, your SUPs at 71%.
We broke it out that way just to get a little bit of insight to say, is it across the board? So that maybe the district administrator is a little bit more from a political standpoint, where the AD is slightly less concerned with it, but still majority concerned, and they see it maybe more from a competitive standpoint. So then in what areas do you believe there is a competitive equity problem? Again, we broke it out by the various groups. ADs are blue, principals are red, and our district administrators and presidents are green. The primary area is the divisional placement for tournament play. That's almost, that's 90, 89, 92, 93%. Conference alignment to a much lesser degree, or around 40%. And then again, it drops down. Regular season schedules, not as big a concern, down to 12, 14, and 18% respectively.
So we said addressing the concern of some members regarding competitive equity could mean opening the WIAA up to costly litigation and/or legislative intervention. So knowing that, do you believe the WIAA should make a policy change to address competitive equity? And again, you can see we broke this out into three different response groups. Your athletic directors, 57% said yes, we need to address it. 61% of principals said yes, and 65% of your district administrators and presidents.
Sure. So then we went into an area, what impact do you believe the following factors have on competitive inequity in WIAA sports? So this is a little bit different slide. The way this was created was the choices were significant impact, some impact, or no impact. And we created a simple average. So if everybody would have said that private parochial independent membership, no boundary limitations was a significant impact, it would have been a 3. It was a 2.58. And then, so you can't be bigger than 3, you can't be less than 1 for this slide. So this is just in relative order, the various items where the lowest ranking item was the user fees for student athletics.
Then we went on and said we wanted to ask about your specific high school. Do you believe your high school has been negatively impacted by competitive inequity in one or more sports? And again, we broke this out by those three groups. 51% of athletic directors said yes, 54% of your principals, 61% of your district admin or presidents.
Yeah, one takeaway, I guess, what I see from the data on this slide is this is more of it's perceived as a bigger problem statewide than it is for my school. So that it's still perceived as a problem, but it actually drops down a bit when it comes to affecting my school. So that's kind of an interesting insight.
So then Bill and I were liking, we were watching the election polls come in last Tuesday and watching the colors of the states change. And we said, ooh, could we do something like that to get a sense of, is there a regional sense to where the issues are?
So bear with us. This is a little bit, so we also we actually had blind loaded some demographic information. So if you were from Washington County, where I'm from, then your data would have been rolled up into Washington County. So this is all respondents by county. And the way this worked was, if less, and this groups everybody together, the ADs and the principals and the superintendents and whatnot, groups them together by county. So if less than 50% agreed to that statement that your high school had been negatively impacted, it was green. If it was between 50 and 64%, it turned yellow. Or if it was more than 64% agreed, it turned red. So we didn't know what was going to happen, but it was kind of an interesting exercise. So as you can see, generally speaking, the people along Lake Michigan don't view it as significant of a problem as those folks who are in more rural areas. So the little green over by the Twin Cities was probably your Hudson's and whatnot. And then you can see La Crosse is kind of the yellow area. But so there is kind of an interesting theme that developed looking at the data that way. Okay, now if you recall the survey, we really looked at it at two levels. One was at the state level, and one was at a local level. So we're going to do the state first. And this is this is probably the most important thing to take away from these results. The survey branched. So if you said there's not a problem, you didn't see this question, right? Because if there's not a problem, you don't have to say which sport. So for those who said there is a problem, for the boys, which sports? So number one was basketball at 89%. Of all those who said there's a problem, football was second at 76%. Then it drops pretty dramatically down to baseball, all the way down to swimming and diving being the lowest rated item in terms of there being a problem. And now we went to, now this is kind of adjusted. This is where you have to be careful with data, so we wanted to be really, really transparent and show it both ways. So that was everybody who said, yes, there's a problem. But if you take everybody who responded to the survey who could have said there's a problem, it drops down. So in other words, if I took the survey and said, no, there's not a problem at the state level. So this is the slide that adjusts the data to the percent of all respondents. If that makes sense. So you can see basketball dropped down to 45%. Football, those are still the primary concerns or primary sports that were of concern, but they dropped down. So we're just trying to, again, define the problem.
So let's go back and look at so we can kind of flip back and forth.
So the previous slide, so you're at 89% with basketball, and then adjusted 45%.
And then for the girl athletes in the room,
Well, kind of the same logic is you wouldn't see these questions if you said there wasn't a problem. So for those who said yes, there was a problem, 91% said basketball, 71% said volleyball, and then again it kind of drops down to their softball and soccer and hockey. And by the way, when we go to the next slide, I'll explain what we did. So same top ones, basketball, volleyball are still your number two. This slide was also adjusted with one other factor. So I have friends up in the North Woods that are into hockey, girls hockey, and so it didn't make sense if our school doesn't offer girls hockey, it doesn't make sense because I probably don't care about girls hockey, right? So we adjusted this slide to only the schools that offer the sport who could have said yes. So that's where it gets a little bit tricky, but they had to offer girls hockey, they had to say it was a problem, and then did they pick it? So that's how this slide was created. It was adjusted. Now in the case of girls basketball, almost everybody offers girls basketball, not everybody offers girls hockey. So this slide's been adjusted to take that into consideration.
So that's part of that blind demographic load that Bill talks about within our software, that we were able to pull data on each school that responded to the survey.
So because basketball was the primary concern, both boys and girls, we did a little bit additional analysis, just to, again, blind demographics. We loaded which division your school was in to say, okay, when you do this, you never know how it's going to turn out. Sometimes it's usually what you think, but so the D1 schools in terms of boys basketball are at still 78%. It's less of a concern. You see it grows to our D3, D2, D3, D4. It actually drops just a bit in D5, but just, 4%.
So those were the folks that said that there was a problem, that offered basketball, and said that there was, that they felt that basketball was a sport that was impacted, correct?
Right. And then for girls sports, same thing. You can see it's almost identical. It moves around a little bit with similar concerns and just a slight drop when we get to the D5 schools. Another cut we made of the data, because we had loaded some other demographic information about your school, was to say, in terms of school classification, you can see all your schools are classified from rural fringe all the way over to city large to suburban small. So you can see, generally speaking, the cities, larger cities have a little less concern than our smaller rural schools, which I guess is what you would expect. This just helps quantify that. Same thing for the girls. Very similar data.
Okay, then we took advantage of the opportunity, since we were doing the statewide survey, we wanted to gather some information on co-op teams. So we asked the question, do you believe co-op teams have positively impacted the WIAA? As you can see across all three responding groups, you've got very positive results there, that yes, people think that that's been a good thing. Then we said, do you believe co-op teams should have the opportunity to compete in the Wisconsin state tournaments? As you can see, strong response there that yes, they should be able to compete. Then we had some questions that we wanted you to respond to. Again, as Bill talked about with the previous data that looked like this, these are going to be simple averages. If everyone had strongly agreed, you'd see a 5. If everyone had responded strongly disagreed, you would see a 1.
So really all these are above a 3, all these statements tested with the most support. Top one being that co-op teams are necessary to maintain access to sports for a district and school. And the lowest rated one was in sports where conference approval is not available. The tournaments, sectional grouping should be required to give participation. So again, that's right around, neutral would be 3. So it's just a little bit to an agreement on that.
So our data shows us that there's strong support for co-ops in the state. Again, we had a question regarding seasonal placement of sports. So we asked, are you satisfied with the current seasonal placement of girls' sports? You can see the breakout there, but in general, yes, folks are satisfied with the current placement of sports. And we asked the question, should the WIA explore changing the current seasonal placement of girls' sports? 23% of athletic directors said yes, but 64% said no. Want to take this one?
And then we asked if yes. So again, this is just those folks who said yes. So there was about 20% of our sample actually saw this slide. So the other 80% didn't even respond. This one we broke out. We thought it'd be interesting to break it out by the district administrator, principal, and ADs, just to kind of see. You all are the blue folks. We sorted on blue here, and swimming and diving was highest, soccer was second, softball was third, and cross country was, hockey was 0.
So remember, don't get excited that 57% of districts across the state think they should change swimming and diving. Where the yes is coming from the 23%, 16 and 18% of respondents, so that N changes.
Right, so then we adjusted this. So if you take into account everybody who could have said we should change things, this is how the data changes for girls' sports. So this is a percentage of all respondents who offer the sport. So I got to offer it, and I have to say we should change it. Now you can see swimming and driving drops down to 23%, soccer to 13%. Same exercise with the boys' sports.
Yep, so as you can see here, 71% of athletic directors said no, we don't need to change boys' sports, 64% of principals, 62% of your district administrators and presidents. Same piece here, you can see if they said yes, or they felt that it should be adjusted which sports. So you've got the baseball, soccer, pop. Then we did the same thing, we're gonna adjust that N, and we're gonna go back and look at all respondents. Now you can see that golf falls at 20%, that's volleyball, then cross country. And everybody's happy with wrestling.
So we kind of rounded out at the end of the survey, we asked which one of the following statements best measures the success of your high school athletic program. And I don't know that this is one of those, I know the right answer and I know the answer. Anyway, the way people responded was high school body, student body and community support, involvement and pride is our number one as a group across the board. Number two is athletics performing well academically, high participation rate, and at the bottom of the only 3% or 4% of our group said the number of conference, regional, sectional, and/or state championships. So it kind of puts things back into perspective for us and what's important.
So that's your big picture data from the survey. Our next steps are we'll be meeting with the Board of Control on December 2nd. And we'll be going over the data, we'll be showing them how they can dig deeper, do some disaggregation. Again, we've spent a lot of time combing through the data and realizing that N changes, and so we need to really look at, quantifying the size of the problem.
So questions on survey methodology or process or anything?
Shoot the messenger.
Can you just explain the breakdown between rural, fringe, rural, distant, and rural remote? What were the distances you used for that?
Yep, so that comes from the national, there's a national statistics piece that your school is, has a rating from. So we pulled those from the national report.
Is the National Bureau of Educational Statistics. So every school's been classified. I'm not exactly sure I suppose it's a criteria, size of town and things like that. Right?
So your business manager on
That's
that.
based on, they'll take the city and from the largest city in your state, and then they're based on the miles away from the city. So a city is classified as 500,000 or larger. And then a city medium is 100,000 to 500,000, and then a city small is 0 to 100,000. And then as you go out, you have suburban, and it's suburban 5 miles from the city center point, 10 miles from the city center point, and then you go rural, which is 10, 30, and 50 miles from the city center point. So that's how those are classified, and it's on the U.S. Census Bureau data. Thank you.
Other questions? Did it surprise you? Is that what you thought, the way you thought it would turn out? Of course, you took the survey, so you influenced it. Yes, ma'am.
Sharing that PowerPoint with us with the understanding that you know it still has to be done through results.
Yes, that PowerPoint will be put up, as will the video of this presentation be shared on our website.
This is really the beginning of looking at the data. So now there'll be a lot of digging and really trying to identify, where the problems are. Again, this was just, is there really an issue? Do we have squeaky wheels, or is there an overall concern that there's a problem?
So we got the map out, now we know where we are. Now we gotta get out of the woods. Or we stay in the woods. Any other questions? We good? Thank you.
Bill and Sue, thank you for your time and your efforts and for sharing this information with us. So, a new venture, you're going to a third-party professional organization to help us to sift through some data, and really we are just on the ground level, probably just clearing our throats a little bit, if you will, of how we can use this data. So I've asked Executive Director from the WIAA, Dave Anderson, and Executive Director from WIAA, Greg Smith, to join me at the stage, and perhaps to button up a little bit of a narrative from this data and what some of the next steps are, and perhaps there are some questions as well. What we do know this about possible questions today is, again, we're just clearing our throat. What specifically are we going to do here in this region and align this way, and what about this co-op? I don't know that those questions are really something that are able to be sifted through right now because the data is just very fresh. But perhaps there's some general methodology type questions that would help us to direct the conversation. So, Dave, I'm going to turn the mic over to you to button some of these pieces up here.
I'm just going to stay down here, Jim, if that's okay. First of all, I want to thank you, Jim, for your opening remarks and as well as these introductory remarks to this next conversation, as well as thank Bill and Sue for taking on, and your team taking on something that is a little bit out of your normal wheelhouse. It will prove to be helpful. Thanks is also due to this membership, your willingness to participate. A terrific response to the survey, 96%. Outstanding. I think Jim has accurately captured where do we go from here. This is the starting point for the next conversations that as a membership need to take place. It was already shared with you that the board was given the PowerPoint last night, and so they are on their own sifting their way through it as well, without the benefit of the comments, the insights, and remarks that Bill and Sue offered you here today. What I can promise you is this: it was the board's initiative. The board said, after 2 or 3 years of this membership weighing in on competitive equity in the annual meetings, that said, look, even though none of the proposals that were on the floor were embraced, whether it was the multiplier, the reducer, or the success factor, we still recognize, the board recognizes that there is a substantial number within the membership who perceive a concern, a problem, or that we could do better. I'm not gonna paint it into any single category. And the board said, look, we can't ignore this group within this membership, if we are a membership, perceptions. Wise person once told me, truth is what I perceive it to be. My perception is my reality. And so we will not, as a membership, hide, wilt, or faint from new information it has been what has made this membership as strong and as successful as it has been this past 120 some years. So where we will go from here is the board will now hear this firsthand report in December. The board will have opportunity to ask their questions, and then it is reasonable for the board, the advisory council, sports advisory, all of your elected democratic committees, your representatives, to begin chewing on all of this. And it's important that we chew on all of this data and information in light of our reality here today. And that reality is that we do exist within a state, within a culture and climate that we see interests outside of this room and interests outside of this membership absolutely willing to jump in and exert their influence at their discretion. And so while it is important to look at our future as a membership in light of competition, opportunities for participation, our valuing a high engagement of students versus the final bottom line of winning and losing, this data, those thoughts, the reality of the political and legal environment and climate all need to be a part of the deliberations going forward. I can't promise that outcome A is going to happen, outcome B is going to happen, that there will be a new ad hoc committee. I don't know those things yet. But between our chewing on this, digesting this, allowing it to percolate, the feedback that you give your WIAA representatives, that you give your sports advisory, your advisory council, and your board representative, will all be a part of our conversation going forward. You will be kept informed every step of the way when there is anything new to report. Certainly, it will be talked about, and your representatives on those committees I've already identified can, should, and I expect will get back to you on the conversations that they have been a part of. You will receive an update for certain in April at the annual meeting. If there is something that is important to get out sooner, you know that we are willing to communicate with you. So I really appreciate the strong turnout, the response to the survey, but also your turnout here this morning. I'm not prepared to say that this gives us a clear sense of direction of what is next, but there certainly gives us a clear sense of there are things that we will talk about. Greg?
Thank you, Dave. A couple of comments as I represent you in meeting at the national level with the other executive directors. And by the way, there's 44 states now that have executive directors. And I will tell you that people are watching Wisconsin, not only on this issue, but everything else. And that's because of our reputation as a state. And I agree wholeheartedly with Dave. The survey results, that's a tribute to all of you and the districts that you represent. Because I'll tell you, the NIAAA surveys and stuff that is put out doesn't get anywhere close to what this survey represented as far as feedback from our districts. The one thing that I appreciate about our relationship with the WIAA is the willingness to talk back and forth and work out issues. And if there's one thing that scares me to death, is one of the things that was in the slide and that is having somebody outside of the WIAA or WIAA make this decision for us. And I'll give you 3 words that should back that up. President-elect Trump. Not that I'm for or against him, but that's just proof that you never know what's going to happen. And I think we've got to be very careful about letting somebody outside of us tell us what to do from that perspective. I think this organization and the WIAA can make this happen. And is everybody going to be satisfied? Is everybody going to be happy? I think we all know the answer to that. But I think that this certainly is a fantastic first step. And I welcome the partnership that we've had with the WIAA, and whatever the outcome is going to be, I think that we will make it as good as it can be.
Folks, are there any questions for these 2 gentlemen that may help us clear our throats a little better this time? There, of course, will be other opportunities, but this is just a chance for us to gather together and just start putting our heads around this. So.
Do you know when it will be available on the website? Share with our principals.
Any idea, Todd? We could do it as soon as we get back, or do you want, as soon as we get the video, do you want the board to look at it? Yeah, I think what I would ask is only that perhaps we have the opportunity to let the board review this video and then get it out there. Staff, we are all leaving here, going home, washing socks and underwear, and getting ready to head to state football. If not by the end of this week, because of the board's involvement in the state football, I would anticipate certainly by sometime next week at the latest. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Phil and Sue.
So one of the things that struck me just having the opportunity on being on the board the last couple of years is when I have had opportunities to talk with Dave and the other executive staff members from the WIAA about why are we thinking this way, why are we considering doing this, because this could be a wholesale change, whether it's again co-ops or putting a sport in another season, and really I think Greg explained it pretty well, was the fact that we want to be able to make decisions for our membership. We want to be able to make decisions for our kids in our schools that are in line with best education-based practices. And if we don't make those decisions, some legislator is going to make it for us. And so I really appreciate the forward thinking, and we've been working hard. Dave has been leaning very hard to try to help us to get our heads around this and to stay ahead of it. So thank you for allowing us to share this with you and being part of this experience and helping us to get rolling here. But I want to share a few other things. So in 50 years as an organization, and if you were here at this meeting 45 years ago or 49 years ago, which I know there's at least one person that was, I just want to share with you some of the topics that, well, you would have been hearing about. So first of all, one of the things we would have been talking about, this was from the 1973 WIAA General Session notes. Is there a problem with conference realignment? 1973. Another thing that very much in the first days of our organization was for several years there was a wives club and a wives hospitality room, and I looked. There wasn't a husband's hospitality room or a husband's club of any kind. I'm just so proud that for the state of Wisconsin, it doesn't make a difference what gender you are. We have wonderfully awesome athletic directors, and on our board for several years has been well represented by extremely strong, capable, and confident people, whether they are female or they're males. And I'm very proud that we are one of the states that I think we continue to do it right and to get better at being sure that we celebrate not just our men, but of course the wonderful women we have in our leadership positions. So that's something to be proud of in 50 years. That's really wonderful, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that continues to grow. Another thing that I would like to share with you, if you were at the 1978 meeting, you would have realized that Wisconsin was one of the charter members of the NIAAA. So one of the first members of the NIAAA organization. Just a few other things of interest from earlier meetings. Wow, okay, so if you were at the 1975 meeting, you wouldn't have had a chance. You wouldn't have had a chance to listen to John Frizzell talk about Twitter. You wouldn't have had Luke Francois talking about education-based athletics. You would have had an opportunity to come to a session and talk about personal grooming. I really wish we would have that now for some of you. Maybe we need to bring that back, Tim Collins, for next year. Another one that you might enjoy, so this was from the notes in 1973, and it was all caps, and it was all typed in bold letter. All the stuff was typed out on a manual typewriter, these notes I was looking at. But it used the word emerging sport, question mark. Emerging sport, question mark. What do we need to be concerned about? Cheerleading, pom-pom. Dance wasn't even on the radar, so it's amazing how some things have not changed very much during that time. It has been a lot of fun having a chance to go through some of our archives and to see just how our group has evolved and changed. And it's a pleasure to be able to celebrate and talk about the things we're talking about today. We got some wonderful things going. What a great opportunity for us to get better for kids. And my hope is that as we end this part and we move on with the rest of our conference here, we still have a couple of hours left, that you just take some stock right now. Take some stock of the people that are around you, the people that you're sitting with, maybe that 80 that you don't know yet, and boy, you know what, before the end of this time, these couple hours, you need to make that connection. How can the people in this room help you become better than you were before when you got here? And as I look around this room, there's all kinds of people that have done that for me, and I feel very blessed and humbled to be in that situation. But do you feel that way? Is there somebody here that can make you better, or you can make them better? If you haven't made that connection yet, we have a little extra time because that segment went kind of a little bit shorter than we thought, so you have time to build that relationship. But I just want to encourage you to do that. So just some housekeeping things here so you know what's going on next. Well, right after this meeting, you'll have an opportunity to check out of your room, so please go ahead and take care of that. At 10:30 in this room, if you're somebody that is thinking about going to the National Convention or somebody that actually is going to the National Convention, join us for a short meeting here. We're going to talk about what that experience is about and what it's going to look like when we get there. But this year it's in the second weekend of December, and it's going to be in Nashville. And if you have not thought about it, this is really a great experience to be able to go to the national level. Some great, wonderful national speakers. It is very much like we do things here, but a much more beefed up level, and just some wonderful people across the nation. Then at 10:45, also in this room, we're going to be doing our annual meeting. And typically that is a meeting that lasts about a half hour. We have some of our business to conduct. We will be announcing our scholarship winners, and we will also be announcing our district reps and gender reps, and also announcing the results of our vice president election. And then I would also like to invite everybody at 11:15 to our wind-up luncheon. There's an opportunity to give away several great prizes, and we do some more recognition, some thank yous, and we also have the passing of the presidency at that time as well. And that's going to be in the suite right next door. So, Mr. Smith, anything else right now? All right, so we will see you at 10:30 for NIAAA attendee meeting here, or we'll see you at 10:45 for the annual meeting. Thank you so much.